Hey YouTube, what's up? It's CS back here with another installment, and here is my review for UFC 143, Diaz versus Condit. Alright, so what do you guys think of that card? Pretty eventful in my opinion. Not the greatest card in terms of excitement, but not the worst at all. You know, I did have fun at times in this one, but I was really disappointed throughout it at some of the fighters' decisions, some decisions by the ref. I will get to that soon, but let's start off with that Welterweight Championship main event between Nick Diaz and newly crowned champion Carlos Condit. Alrighty folks, well of course I gave it away to you guys just right there. Carlos Condit of course won via unanimous decision over Nick Diaz to win the interim welterweight belt. Good for Carlos Condit, came in there with the right game plan. And I applaud it because with Carlos Condit's skill set, he has to fight like that against Nick Diaz. You know, move in, combination, elbow, back spinning elbow, I don't know, knees, some leg kicks, all that jazz. He has to do whatever he can when he's actually in the pocket with Nick Diaz. And as soon as Nick Diaz starts trying to go off on a flurry, then run the hell away. You have to fight like that against Nick Diaz. No one fights Nick Diaz in the pocket and expects to survive. Real talk, you know. Well, they did expect to survive, but did they? Absolutely not. KJ Noons, their second fight, absolutely not. Evangelista Cyborg Santos, absolutely not. BJ Penn, absolutely not. Paul Daly, not even him. With him and his crazy hooks. But Carlos Condit showed a really dynamic striking game in this bout and fought a solid game plan. And if you guys want to shit on that, then shit on the sport of mixed martial arts, like Nick Diaz did at the end of his the bout, where he essentially retired. Now, I'm not going to hate on Nick Diaz for saying that, you know, because I know he truly feels that way, where, you know, he doesn't want to go up against these game planners. He kind of just wants to go out there and fight. And he's exciting as fuck, I'll give him that. But the name of the game is mixed martial arts, and it's turned into a sport. And usually in sports, you kind of have to be a little bit more of a dynamic fighter besides plant your feet and start outboxing people. He turns every bout into a boxing match or a jiu-jitsu match. Real talk, he does. So, you know, if it goes to the ground, he's trying to win there. If he's standing up, he's trying to plant his feet and start throwing. That's what he's trying to do. And he's not, you know, going out there to essentially kickbox. Because that's what Carlos Condit did. He fought a kickboxing match, did a little bit more running than, say, you know, other World Max fighters. But, holy crap, you know, he knew he was stronger fighting that kind of fight, so he did. So y'all can't hate on him for that. And really, that was the only way I could see him winning. Because I couldn't see him winning by submission. I couldn't see him out wrestling Nick Diaz, and I didn't see him just straight trading with Nick Diaz and being able to win like that, even though he has very solid power, Carlos Condit. For a while, I thought Carlos Condit was trying to cut Nick Diaz, you know, throwing a little bit more knees and elbows in that round 3 or 4. I couldn't remember, but it looks like he was trying to cut Nick Diaz bad, because maybe if he went to the decision, Carlos Condit might have felt that Nick Diaz moving forward all the time might have garnered him the decision. So yeah, he went a little bit apeshit in round 4, and you know, thank God he secured it, even though he couldn't cut Nick Diaz, because I'm pretty sure that was what he was trying to do. But nevertheless, Carlos Condit came in there with a game plan. Nick Diaz did too. But if you're able to fight like Carlos Condit in that fight against Nick Diaz, you'll probably win most of the time, because, you know, Nick Diaz, you kind of have to fight his fight. You take him out of his element, and he's not going to win, you know, again. So it's either you do that or you Division I wrestle him, and that's that. Nick Diaz has a problem with that now, and it's not like he's had a problem with it now. He's always had a problem with that. You know, he kind of wants to go out there and fight his fight, and if you don't fight his fight, then you know, he'll shit on you for it, kind of like he did against Carlos Condit after the, you know, fight happened, you know. So that was unfortunate, but it's really how he feels, so I'm glad he's honest. But again, Carlos Condit's a man at 170. Good for him. One of my favorite fighters. Y'all know that. I tried to remain impartial in my last video, my prediction video. Of course, I picked Nick Diaz and all. I didn't say I wanted Carlos Condit to win or anything, although I did. But, you know, he did, so I'm ecstatic. What's next for him, though? If he wants to wait for George St-Pierre, he can. I'd like to see him defend the title at least once before that could possibly happen, personally. And as for Nick Diaz, him and his retirement, you know, personally, I think he should retire if he doesn't like the fact that people come in here with game plans and expose the guy. You know, I think he should. But he's exciting as hell, you know, but I just don't want to see the dude, like, pissed off and shit like that, you know what I'm saying? So, who knows? We'll see. Say if Jim Miller goes off on Nate Diaz come the UFC on Fox 3 card and does what Jim Miller has to do against Nate Diaz, I don't want to see Nate Diaz do that same shit too, like at the end. So who knows? We'll see. But again, it's all about that natural born killer tonight. All right, folks. Now let's move on to that heavyweight co-main event bout between Roy Nelson and Fabrizio Verdum. Now, of course, Roy Nelson did his thing, went out there, got smashed, and most people who know their stuff, I don't think were surprised. Fabrizio Verdum is just that much more of a dynamic fighter than Roy Nelson is. Roy Nelson comes out there, tries to land a right hand, or he tries to somehow jiu-jitsu take down you, and if he does, he's on top of you with all that fat, and then he puts you in a crucifix, and then he tries to do the elbow game or the punch game like that. You know, that's Roy Nelson MMA. If he can't do that, shit like this can most likely happen to you, or he can get ragdoll like Frank Mir did to him, you know. So Roy Nelson really isn't that good of a heavyweight fighter. And if that guy isn't somewhere near the top 10, then this division thin as hell outside the top 5 of this heavyweight division. So, yeah, I don't know, man. But Roy Nelson, he's a mainstay. He comes out there, takes a beating, does what the fans want him to do, and then they chant USA and shit. That kind of pissed me off because, let's be real, if he wasn't fat, I don't think people would be chanting USA. So, yeah, if that's the kind of image y'all want to portray in America, go for that. You know, I'm American too, you know, and I thought that was kind of despicable, but hey, that's just my opinion. But props to Fabrizio Verdum. Don't want to take anything away from that guy. The guy came out there with a solid game plan. Him and Rafael Cordero out of King's MMA, you know, training on that dude's kickboxing and looked pretty sharp for the most part against Roy Nelson. You know, part of that is to, you know, to Roy Nelson's credit, though, for looking so whack on the feet. Roy Nelson just trying to land a right hand and all. But Fabrizio Verdum, cracking him with knees all day. Some solid display of Muay Thai there, you know, leg kicks, whatever, but a lot of knees. And Roy Nelson had like a broken nose, it looked like, or whatever that was, but he was bloody as hell in this region. But Fabrizio Verdum, props to him for doing so. Clean 30-27 decision, no question about it. Yeah, even judges got this one, right? So yeah, props to Fabrizio Verdum. Is he a contender in the heavyweight division? If he is, that's kind of sad because he kind of gassed out towards the end of round 3 and shit, and he doesn't exactly have wrestling takedowns to be able to, you know, get guys he has to get to the ground and tap him out. You know, he's not going to go out there, out-wrestle Cain Velasquez and tap him out. You know, guys like that, you know what I'm saying? So, and he's just not going to get it done with that stand-up if he feels like lasting a hard 3 rounds with someone like a Cain Velasquez or, you know, any other heavyweight contender. Because, yeah, I just don't like the idea of him gassing when he really doesn't have much to get to the ground with, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah, whatever. It's still a good win for him against Roy Nelson. Roy Nelson's a UFC mainstay pretty much for however long he wants, I think, because the fans do like him, although Dana doesn't like his gut. But it's whatever. What's next for Roy Nelson? I don't know. We'll see. Who knows? But Fabrizio Verdum, solid 30-27 win for him. Alrighty, folks, now let's move on to that welterweight robbery between Josh Koscheck and Mike Pierce. Now, I thought Mike Pierce won the first 2 rounds. I thought they were the definition of 10-9, 10-9, and 10-9, 10-9, hence a 29-28 fight, because there's no question to who won the 3rd round. That was Josh Koscheck. He got the takedowns. He out-grappled Mike Pierce for the most part in that round, and he was more active with his right hand. Mike Pierce, for the most part, though, in the first 2 rounds, was outstriking Josh Koscheck, a little bit more active, and his takedown defense looked on point. So, you know, Josh Koscheck really couldn't get much points for anything, in my opinion, because he wasn't outstriking Mike Pierce, and Mike Pierce was using a solid job of effective grappling because someone wanted to get to the ground. It wasn't him, and he was standing up. So, yeah, I thought Mike Pierce was winning that fight after the first 2 rounds. I'm like, yo, Josh Koscheck needs a finish. He didn't exactly go out there and get it, but he got the 3rd round, and he ended up getting the fight because some judge gave Josh Koscheck 1 in the first 2 rounds. I thought that was unfortunate. So yeah, I scored it for Mike Pierce. Holler at your boy. But I did pick Josh Koscheck to win via decision. I thought he would do what he did in the 3rd round, but over the course of 3. But whatever, I'm happy I picked him, and he got the win. What's next for him? I don't know. We'll see. Maybe the winner of Sanchez Ellenberger. I don't know. Who knows? He's already fought Sanchez twice, so but I doubt Sanchez is going to win that fight. So I think he can make Josh Koscheck Ellenberger in that one, and Ellenberger one is not someone to sleep on if that actually happens. So we'll see about that. As for Mike Pierce, I don't know. Mike Pierce, maybe the loser of that bout. I think that would be fair. Oh yeah, Nick Diaz, if he still feels like coming back, y'all, I think he should face the loser of the Martin Cam and Thiago Alves fight, and they're not going to go out there and look like Carlos Condit in terms of having a game plan. So I think Nick Diaz will find the fight he likes if he comes back against one of those guys. But yeah, as for this bout, guys, Josh Koscheck for the win, split decision. Alright, folks, now let's move on to that Scott Jorgensen, Herman Barao bantamweight bout. Now, of course, Barao won 30-27 across the board, unanimous decision. And yeah, that means his streak remained intact with 28 straight fights without a loss. So that's some crazy shit right there. Props to Barao for getting it done over Jorgensen. Jorgensen, a very tough opponent, very solid wrestler who has pretty, powerful hands. But of course, he couldn't take Barao down, who's a more athletic guy, and he couldn't land, a right hand on him. So of course he lost. That's pretty much a story with any Jorgensen bout. If he can't out-wrestle you or, connect with that hand, then he's going to lose, And really, there's only two guys that happens against. And that's one, Herman Barao, like we saw, and other Dominic Cruz, like we saw in that 5-round bout. So, yeah, Scott Jorgensen just really isn't, doesn't have what it takes to win a title. Sadly, he's a nice guy. Props to Scott Jorgensen for giving his all. But this is all about that Herman Barao, 30-27. Made that look decisive. For the most part, made Scott Jorgensen look silly out there. Scott Jorgensen missing with his combinations. Scott Jorgensen not getting takedowns off. But yeah, Herman Barao is too good. What can I say? Did he show instances of him being able to beat Dominic Cruz on the feet? I think he did. But Dominic Cruz, if he feels like beating Herman Barao, has to do some wrestling more often in this bout, and I think he will as soon as he's done with Faber. So yeah, for the most part, I'm still leaning towards Cruz in that bantamweight division, but Herman Barao is a beast, and if he becomes, Jose Aldo over the course of his next training camp, then maybe he's able to beat Dominic Cruz. We'll see, but tonight, yeah, this was his for sure. Alright, folks, now let's move on to that bout that kicked off the main card between middleweights Ed Herman and Clifford Starks. Now this is crazy because Ed Herman, of course, won via second round submission, but he had a harder time with Clifford Starks than he did with Tim Crater and Kyle Noak, and those guys are more decorated than Clifford Starks is. So it just proves that, you can just basically come into MMA at any age, have some athleticism, and be successful. Real talk, because watching that, Clifford Starks looked all right in my opinion. For the most part, he wasn't afraid to let his hands go like any other ASU wrestler, and his wrestling looked on point because for the most part, his takedown defense looked all right. But it did get exposed in round 2, and then from there, he's a typical ASU guy or a typical wrestler for that mention, because him on his back equals lose. A lot of wrestlers feel that way because really you don't get trained to do anything off your back if you're a wrestler, because if you're on your back, you're most likely getting pinned, so who gives a fuck about trying to learn anything else? So, yeah, what can I say? Clifford Starks lost. He gave up his back eventually, and Herman Barao, rear naked choke. There it is. Over, solid win for Ed Herman. What's next for him? Hopefully a step up in competition. As for Clifford Starks, I think he has the stuff to be a UFC mainstay, maybe gatekeeper. We'll see. Alrighty, folks, now let's move on to the preliminary card and take a look at it really fast, starting with Dustin Poirier versus Max Holloway. Now, Max Holloway basically took this fight on short notice and flew out from Hawaii to Nevada to get slaughtered by a contender in Dustin Poirier. Really unfortunate for Max Holloway. He'll be back, though. He has some solid kickboxing skills. He's pretty athletic, but it's all about the diamonds tonight. Dustin Poirier just showed that he's a better mixed martial artist. And, yeah, he'll be facing a real contender real soon again, hopefully. And if not, maybe getting that title shot. I don't know, that doesn't sound right. I don't think Dustin Poirier beat enough people. But then again, the featherweight division's a mess, so anything can happen. We'll see. Now let's move on to the bantamweight bout between Alex Caceres and Edwin Figueroa. Now, Edwin Figueroa won the fight via split decision. Alright, whatever. But Alex Caceres shouldn't have been deducted 2 points for repeated kicks to the groin. I've never seen that ever. I'd like to see some more consistency in MMA, please, Herb Dean. Is that really what you're supposed to do? Is 2 points after one warning and then more repeated kicks to the groin? I've never seen it happen. Someone please, link me to somewhere that it has, because I was really surprised by it. And Alex Caceres should have had a draw in that bout, because it was 28-27 Figueroa, 28-27 Caceres, 28-27 Figueroa. That's what the scores were. And of course, if you only deducted 1 point for Alex Caceres, he would have had, the one judge give for him still and you would have had the other two judges score a draw, so it would have been a majority draw. So I didn't think he deserved to lose that bout personally, but whatever. You know, he still showed that he was a superior mixed martial artist in that bout. He pretty much beat Figueroa everywhere, but yeah, it was his own undoing, losing to you know, just throwing groin kicks. Really unfortunate. Now he looks even more of a 500 fighter, although he is better than that now. So yeah, hopefully Alex Harris just comes out the next time and improves. As for Edwin Figueroa, good win. Welterweight bout between Matt Brown and Chris Cope. Matt Brown, yeah, better at striking than Chris Cope, and that's all Chris Cope has. Whatever. Now let's move on. Welterweight bout between Matt Riddle and Henry Martinez. Matt Riddle robbed someone again. Whatever. Henry Martinez, props for doing your thing, coming off a short notice training camp and all that jazz. And Matt Riddle really isn't UFC caliber, but whatever. He's somewhat entertaining. Whatever. Now let's move on to that middleweight bout between Rafael Natal, Michael Kuiper. Natal outgrappled him over the course of 3 rounds. End of story. Dan Stitgen versus Stephen Thompson. Wonder Boy with a roundhouse kick, like karate style. That was insane. Props to the Wonder Boy for that. The guy was like 57-0 in kickboxing. And yeah, that about does it for my preliminary card review, I guess. Alright, and I think that about does it for my thoughts in general for UFC 143. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. For me, it did have its moments. It did have its controversies. It's definitely one I will remember. Again, congrats to Carlos Condit and all the winners of this card, and happy trails to Nick Diaz and whatever he decides to do. And I guess that about does for me. Comment in the comment section below telling me your thoughts on this shit, and I guess I will hear from you soon, hopefully. And the next time you'll see a video of mine is hopefully my UFC on Fuel TV picks. Those should be up very soon, and yeah, I'll see you then. So deuces for all my supporters, bruises for all my haters, and take care.